Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast here on thelittleshaman.com. Just type in that address and it'll take you right to the YouTube channel. Today's episode is brought to you by Transrelational Healing, ShamanSpiritCenter.com, and littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that virtually all people dealing with narcissists experience, and that is feeling or being told that you are asking for too much. Relationships are supposed to be equal, give and take. Each person does both so that no one ends up carrying or doing too much or not enough. This is how relationships stay healthy and don't veer into codependent territory where one or both people are taking responsibility for things that are not theirs. Some examples of that would be, I'm responsible for my stuff and yours. You are responsible for my stuff and yours. I'm responsible for your stuff and you're responsible for mine. The healthy dynamic here would be, I'm responsible for my stuff, you're responsible for your stuff, and we can support each other in doing that. Stuff in this context would be things like emotions, self-regulation, reactions, choices, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and anything else of their own that a person is responsible for. Relationships with narcissists tend to involve codependency because narcissists require other people to be responsible for their stuff. The dynamic here tends to be, you are responsible for both my stuff and yours, and I'm essentially responsible for nothing. The way this typically ends up is that asking narcissists for even basic things is considered unreasonable to them. For example, asking them to take responsibility for their own reactions or feelings is considered unfair and even abusive to many narcissists. These things aren't their responsibility as far as they see it. They have no input or control over anything in life, so asking them to control or take responsibility for stuff feels unreasonable. It feels like blame. This tends to trigger shame and rage in them, which of course makes the problem much worse than it ever needed to be. This is related to the power and control dynamics inherent to these relationships as well. Narcissists feel powerless over themselves and their lives. They have an extreme external locus of control, which causes them to feel like things or people outside of themselves are controlling them and controlling how they feel, controlling how they're reacting. This in turn causes them to try to control everything around them to try to compensate for that. That includes other people specifically who have much more power and influence over the narcissist than they might actually realize. So not only is a narcissist's refusal to take responsibility for their own stuff an automatic response due to an external locus of control, it's also an emotional reaction to feeling powerless over their environment. They have to oppose, to disagree, to withhold, to refuse, everything. To submit is to lose, and to lose is to be erased. If they do what you ask, if they agree with what you're saying, if they even listen and consider what you're saying, they lose. And they lose much more than just the argument. For narcissists, to lose in this way is akin to being erased in many cases. Their identities can be so fragile and so unstable that to give in even an inch on any point is experienced as deeply destabilizing and threatening to them. That's losing power. They feel like they're being swallowed up by the other person's identity and that they're not going to exist anymore. So they fight back hard. They need to find that feeling that they're not powerless, that they're not non-existent. They do this by refusing to bend even a little bit for as long as they possibly can. This is why such small things are given such high stakes. This is a person who can feel demeaned, belittled, and controlled by you asking them to hand you something because it's closer to them. They are that fragile and that obsessed with power and power dynamics. They may secretly seethe with rage over these kinds of things, filled with indignation at being treated like your slave, while you have no idea that anything is even wrong because you're just a normal person doing a normal thing with no bad intentions and often no real intentions at all. What kind of intentions are there behind, hey, can you hand me my coffee, please? Many narcissists engage in people-pleasing types of behaviors as well, where they insist on doing for others because they want to be perceived a certain way, and or they feel like this is what they have to do in order to have worth or to be accepted or to be tolerated. Then they rage about all the things that they're expected to do or how they're being taken advantage of by other people, none of whom expected or asked the narcissist to do any of the things that they're complaining about. This type of thing can even turn into a caretaking type of situation where the narcissist expects you to just somehow know that they don't really want to do something and stop them even though they're insisting. It's very frustrating for people because if they do try to stop the narcissist from doing things that they say make them feel taken advantage of, the narcissist gets angry about that as well, feeling controlled by that or even guilty for not doing it, which of course is then blamed on the other person. You're trying to make me feel bad. It's not just narcissists who engage in people-pleasing behavior, of course. Codependent types of behaviors and dynamics are extremely common. However, with narcissists, it tends to be so much more toxic and damaging because it's so extreme. This is, again, an example of these dynamics where other people are expected to be responsible for the narcissist stuff. They said they wanted to do the thing, everything's fine, they like doing the thing, whatever, but then it turns out that that's completely false. And it's all your fault because you should have known, despite what they told you, despite the fact that you asked them, despite the fact that they insisted. That is very toxic because this person is saying to you, don't listen to my words, read my mind and make the decision for me in spite of what I'm telling you. Stop me from doing the things that I say I want to do. In other words, control me. But as soon as you do that, you get called controlling. That is, of course, a ridiculous expectation for any adult to have of other adults. But anybody dealing with narcissists knows their expectations are almost always unreasonable and unfair. This also makes them feel even more powerless. Just like anyone else struggling with codependent types of relating, they feel unable to say no or refrain from engaging in the behaviors that are resulting in them feeling taken advantage of. But the difference is they blame that on you. You're controlling them. You're making them feel that way because this is what you require of them and this is what you expect of them. You are doing all of this. It's all you, which leads to more rage, more shame, more conflicts, more problems. In people who are not pathologically narcissistic, this type of codependent dynamic can lead to resentment or feeling that you're being taken advantage of, but in normal proportions, and more often than not, it leads to an eventual understanding of the person's own role in the situation. In people who are pathologically narcissistic, it leads to almost psychotic levels of rage and injustice, and feeling horrifically abused and blaming the other person for all of this. There's no way to stop this from happening because this person's expectations of you, of themselves, of any type of relationship are completely unrealistic. The entire thing is a power struggle in which they feel dominated, controlled, and overlooked no matter what you do, and no matter what anybody does. It's just how it is. The only way they don't feel that way is by dominating and controlling you, by overlooking you, by treating you as if you don't matter. There's no equality here. It's one up, one down. These positions might shift, but they never balance. If you're up, they're down. If they're up, you're down. And they're not just down if they're down. You are pushing them down so that you can be up. The whole relationship is a competition that they're trying to win. You're not a partner or a family member. You're an opponent. You're an adversary. You're an enemy. Due to the way these personalities function, there's really no chance of ever being anything else. Somebody will always be one up, someone will always be one down. This is the way they see it. And due to their external locus of control and their narcissistic defense mechanisms, when the narcissist is one down, that's perceived to be your fault. On top of all of these things, any of which would be enough all by itself to make the situation impossible, narcissists have nothing to give. So asking them for anything feels like too much for them. All people need people. Narcissists are not different in that regard, but their needs are somewhat specific and somewhat extreme. They require others to give them constant feedback in order to regulate themselves. This is how they regulate their emotions, how they regulate their self-image and their identity. It's how they're able to see and experience themselves. They need other people in a way that other adult human beings typically don't. This is a matter of survival for them because a personality that doesn't have a stable identity and no way to regulate itself will self-destruct. The problem is, this person's only real ability in terms of survival in this context is to mimic other people to make it look like they have things to give or contribute to relationships. In reality, they don't. There is some kind of developmental hiccup in these personalities that causes them to become stuck at a stage of development where reciprocal relationships are just not possible, like a baby who can do nothing but take and take and take. There seems to be no ability in pathologically narcissistic personalities to understand others as separate, sovereign individuals who exist outside of how they relate to the narcissist. They are understood and conceptualized only as far as how they affect or impact the narcissistic personality. Kind of like how kids are always so shocked to see their teachers somewhere outside of school. To see the teacher outside of school is shocking because the child does not understand the teacher as an actual person in her own right. She's my teacher. That's what she does. That's all she does, because this is the only lens through which I can understand her existence, how it relates to me. Anything else does not occur to a kid. This is why narcissists don't seem to care about what's going on in your life or your feelings or your needs. They don't. Any more than a baby lays there and thinks, well, mom's really tired. I should give her a break on the crying today. I'm only going to cry if I really need something. Babies don't think that. There's no thought given to that at all, and no real ability to even understand it. It's not part of the situation from their position. Expecting empathy from a baby would be ridiculous, and expecting it from narcissists is just as ridiculous for pretty much the same reason. People cannot give you what they don't have, and they're not going to behave in ways that require things they have no capability to do. It's important to remember this is not just a behavioral issue. A person cannot have considerate empathic behavior if there's nothing in their brain telling them to consider and empathize with you. They could ostensibly try, but first of all, why would they? And second of all, they'll fail because their default is not to do that. They would have to consciously try to remember to do that every single second of every single day. To expect them to do that is just not realistic. A person with no nose cannot smell the milk to tell you if it's sour. Expecting them to do that would be pointless as well as frustrating for both of you. To take this analogy a step further, imagine if they didn't realize they had no nose. So they try to smell the milk, and every time they tell you the milk's not sour, it actually is, and you drink it. This is what happens with narcissists. You're dealing with someone who doesn't realize what they're lacking. They think that you're lying that the milk is spoiled because to them it seems fine. That's the relationship. They feel that you're asking for too much because they don't realize their own deficits. They can't see them. There's really no way to make them understand this. From where they're sitting, the milk seems fine. Of course it does. They have no way to tell that it's not fine. And so around and around it goes, with both people getting more and more and more frustrated. The reality is, if you are expecting empathy, consideration, compassion, and respect from a narcissist, you are asking for too much, at least in this situation. This person has no understanding of these things and no ability to give them to you. It's just not part of their programming. They might talk about these things, especially regarding themselves, but try asking them to define in their own words what these things actually are, what they look like in a relationship. You might be surprised by the answer, if you even get one. When we can understand the realities of these situations, we can adjust our expectations accordingly. We should not lower our standards. Requiring empathy, compassion, consideration, respect, and many other things in any relationship should not be negotiable. However, our expectations need to fit the individual situation. If someone demonstrates a lack of caring or ability to meet these bare minimum standards, you shouldn't keep expecting them to do so just because you want them to, or because they say that one day they will. The reality is you're not asking for too much. You're asking the wrong person. At a certain point, we have to realize that a person's actions mean more than their words. Even a cannibal can learn to recite the Apostles' Creed. Anybody can say anything. I can teach a parrot to say the Gettysburg Address. That don't make him Abraham Lincoln. It doesn't make him anything except smart enough to have learned to say what I want him to say in order to get what he wants. That's how this works. It's as simple as that. Reality is not always comfortable or fair. Sometimes we have to face things that are hurtful. Sometimes we have to face the realization that we're not going to get what we wanted or what we felt like we deserve. And that sucks. It's painful, it's uncomfortable, but that's life. Life is not fair, and going around trying to force it to be fair according to our standards is often much more painful and stressful than accepting the way things are. Look at narcissists. They're a perfect example of what trying to do that does to people, of what happens to someone when they cannot accept and adapt to reality. It will drive you crazy, and for what? It doesn't even work anyway. You cannot make the world function according to your rules. This doesn't mean we shouldn't fight against real injustice. It means that we should learn when it's a bigger injustice to ourselves to not let something go. Sometimes it's worth it, and sometimes it's really, really not. Fighting against true injustice is worth it. Fighting to avenge our ego is not. If we can learn to take the loss and learn from it, we will be much happier in the long run. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online, over the phone, via text, via messenger, via email, and through Skype and Zoom worldwide. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one about this or anything else, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I have several books in publication, so if you are interested in picking up a copy of any or all of those, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that, or find them on amazon.com. I teach workshops, seminars, and clinics, so if you are interested in seeing what's running this month, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. And if you're interested in joining our support group with access to exclusive content, weekly support meetings, and more, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. You have been listening to the Meditations and More podcast here on thelittleshaman.com. Just type that in. It'll take you right to the YouTube channel. Today's episode is brought to you by Transrelational Healing, ShamanSpiritCenter.com, and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day.
If you've been struggling through dealing with or recovering from an unhealthy relationship with a narcissist or other toxic personality, The Little Shaman has a catalog of over 500 YouTube videos designed to support your journey from discovery to recovery. You can also find additional resources on the Little Shaman website, including tools, courses, workshops, a support group with weekly meetings, and one-on-one appointments with the Little Shaman that are open to clients worldwide. There's even an AI chatbot built and trained exclusively by the Little Shaman using her work that can answer questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information, visit littleshaman.org. You can listen to The Little Shaman wherever you find your favorite podcasts.